Good morning, everybody, colleagues, friends from the European National Libraries and elsewhere. My name is Hans Betscher. I'm greeting you and welcoming you on behalf of the CNL Executive Committee and colleagues from CNL, where I have to be an honor to be a member for many, many years. We are still living through all over Europe and the world through exciting times. In Austria, we just have the fourth wave of the COVID pandemic. This pandemic has affected and changed our personal lives, but also our professional lives in many, many fields, in our services, in staffing, in working from home. We have very successfully, I think, in all national libraries treated these challenges. We have created new services. We have created new innovative tools and formats, online formats to work with. And today we will get three very exciting and interesting insights how in three national libraries the cultural programming is working at the moment, or maybe even has changed, and what are the challenges for the future and how we deal with this new situation we were still all living through. We will start our we will have our first presentation by Adiba Imash Ismailova. She is the Deputy Director of the Azerbaijan National Library, and Adiba has been working at this library since 2013 as the Deputy Director for Library and Information Services and International Relations, and she's the head of the user department. She's also the author of 3 books and many articles on the application of innovative and creative forms of work in national libraries. And today she will present the Azerbaijani National Libraries events surrounding the 2021 anniversary commemorating the great Azerbaijani poet and thinker Nizami Ganjavi. So Adiba, welcome, and we are looking forward to your presentation.
Good morning. I'm greeting all participants and I wish everyone good luck. Great Azerbaijani poet and thinker Nizami Ganjavi. This year, Azerbaijan celebrates the 880th anniversary of the great Azerbaijani poet and thinker Nizami Ganjavi. Nizami Ganjavi was born in 1141 in Ganja, Azerbaijan, spent all his life in this city and never left it. He died on March 12, 1209 in Ganja. Nizami Ganjavi entered the history of world as the author of Khamsa, consisting of 5 epic poems written in Masnavi style. In connection with the implementation of the order of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan on declaring 2021 as the year of Nizami Ganjavi in the Republic of Azerbaijan, the opening ceremony of the year of Nizami Ganjavi and presentation of an extensive book exhibition titled Great Azerbaijani Poet and Thinker Nizami Ganjavi were held at the National Library on January. Within the framework of the event, also held presentation of Yevgeny Bertev's book, Great Azerbaijani Poet Nizami, published in English in London, and book catalogue of ancient manuscript, Azerbaijani manuscript in the National Library of Prague. Azerbaijan National Library is doing a great job on collecting information resource and presentations into the public. The National Library has done important work to bring digital copies of manuscript belonging to the classics of Azerbaijani literature preserved in the world national libraries to the National Library of Azerbaijan within the framework of the project Return of Our National and Moral Values to the Homeland, which has been implementing since 2019. In 2019, digital versions of 58 valuable manuscripts were brought to Azerbaijan, published and made available to specialists. In connection with the implementation of the order of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan on declaring 2021 the year of Nizami Ganjavi in the Republic of Azerbaijan, the National Library has developed an electronic database entitled The Great Azerbaijani Poet Nizami. In the practice of librarianship in Azerbaijan, the creation of electronic databases has become widespread. When creating such databases, library specialists use not only the documents in the library's own collection, but also materials from other libraries and internet resources, of course, within the terms of copyright. The electronic database consists of the following sections: the official documents, remarkable people's thoughts about Nizami Ganjavi. The next section is works. I would like to note that there are a lot of sections database, but due to the lack of time, I will not be able to show all of them. Therefore, I can show some of them. Works. The manuscript subsection of this section contains digital versions of the manuscripts brought to Azerbaijan during the year of Nizami. Digital copies of Great Nizami's manuscript preserved in various museums and libraries around the world were brought of Azerbaijan National Library under the project Return of Our National Moral Values to the Homeland. These manuscripts were placed in the manuscript subsection of the Great Azerbaijani Poet Nizami electronic database and presented to the public. Manuscript placed in the electronic database have been presented at the request of the director of the National Library. We do not provide full text of electronic versions of manuscript in the electronic database. Only 8 pages are available. Additions are being made regularly and will be made by the end of the year. Only 1 copy of each manuscript has been published for researchers. Hamsa, I would like to show some of them. Hamsa, preserved in the Topkapı Museum Library in Istanbul. There are 26 miniatures on the 370 page well-designed manuscript. Digital version was given to the National Library of Azerbaijan in 2020. 21. Hamsa preserved in the Topkapı Museum Library in Istanbul. The manuscript, consisting of 309 pages, contains 51 miniatures. Digital version was given to the National Library of Azerbaijan in 2021. Eleven manuscripts of the great poet are preserved in the National Library of the Czech Republic. Azerbaijan National Library received digital versions of 3 of these manuscripts. Hamsa preserved in the National Library of the Czech Republic. 326 pages. There are 62 miniatures in the manuscripts. Iskandername poem preserved in the National Library of Czech Republic. 128 pages. One of the most interesting sections in the electronic database Nizami Gencevi and art section. It consists of following subsections: Nizami and music, Nizami in painting, the character of Nizami in sculpture, the world of Nizami on carpets, Nizami and cinema art. Nizami Gencevi and art, Nizami and music. I should like to show Gül Cemal'ın lyrics by Nizami Gencevi and Playa Bülbül. And aphorisms in Azerbaijani, Russian, and next section is aphorisms. Aphorisms in Azerbaijani, Russian, and Arabic languages are presented in this section. Aphorisms by Nizami Gencevi. I should like to show some of resources. In Azerbaijan, there is sections in Azerbaijan, in Russian, and in another languages. Aphorisms in Arabic languages. The latest sections of the electronic database are photo gallery and video gallery. These sections presents photos and films about great Nizami. Photo gallery, now I show Nizami Ganjavi, Nizami Mausoleum, the world of Nizami Ganjavi, Khamsa in fine arts, and etc. And about films. There is documentaries about Nizami, a feature film about Nizami, films based on his works. One example from films about Nizami Ganjavi, about his life, about his works. Due to the lack of time, only 2 or 3 minutes I can show you. Every year, International Book Fair is organized in Baku with the support of the Ministry of Culture of the Republic of Azerbaijan. This year, 7th Baku International Book Fair has held from 6 to 10 October. Azerbaijan National Library invited directors and specialists of the national libraries of 5 countries to this event. The guests took part in the exhibition with the expositions to their libraries, and at the end of the exhibition, they donated the books demonstrated in the expositions and digital copies of Nizami Ganjavi's some manuscript to the National Library of Azerbaijan. As part of International Book Fair, Azerbaijan National Library opened exhibition untitled Nizami Ganjavi manuscript in world libraries and presented an electronic database of same name. The exhibition also featured presentation of the newly published book Nizami Ganjavi Bibliography and CD album Lyrics by Nizami, prepared by the National Library of Azerbaijan on the occasion of the 880th anniversary of the great Azerbaijani poet and thinker Nizami Ganjavi. Memorandum of Understanding on Mutual Cooperation was also signed between the Azerbaijan National Library and the National Library of Uzbekistan, and between the All-Russian Library of Foreign Languages and Azerbaijan National Library at the International Book Fair. At the same time, a permanent book corner of the National Parliamentary Library of Georgia and National Library of Bulgaria has been opened at the Azerbaijan National Library. I would like to make a more detailed presentation on the project Great Azerbaijani Poet and Thinker Nizami Ganjavi. However, due to lack of time, I made it short. Please take it into account.
Thank you, Adiba, for this wonderful presentation. And congratulations to the success you had with this wonderful idea. And I mean, in political terms, but also from your audiences, and sharing digital copies of our national cultural heritage among national libraries is definitely one of our duties. And it shows also your project, our capacity and our willingness to collaborate. And that's in these times we're living through even more and more important. So thank you very much for your presentation. To the audience, we are collecting Q&As, and at the end of all presentations, we will have the opportunity to ask questions and to answer them, or also to speak on your own if you wish. So we then come to our next speaker, which is Dragan Purisic. He is the Deputy Director of the National Library of Serbia. And he graduated from the Faculty of Philosophy at the Belgrade University English Department, where he received a degree, a PhD degree with his dissertation on dimensions of time in the work of William Blake. But he's also a member of the Association of Literary Translators of Serbia, and of the Serbian Pen Center, and he works at the National Library of Serbia as a deputy director and the head of the cultural sector. And he will give us some insight on the work behind the scenes in the National Library's cultural programming. Thank you. So please, Dragan.
Thank you so much for the announcement. It is a pleasure to be with you all today and to participate in the webinar. I would, of course, like to greet you on behalf of Dr. Vladimir Pištalo, Director of the National Library of Serbia. We do hope that you and your colleagues are all doing well and that this pandemic will soon be over. Anyway, I would like to share with you today the story of the originating of the cultural sector within the National Library of Serbia. So let me first acquaint you briefly with the history of the National Library of Serbia, primarily, of course, in regard to the processes that had led to the forming of its cultural sector as the youngest or the most recent one in the organizational structure of the National Library. The National Library of Serbia was founded in 1832, and it usually went through difficult times. The most difficult ones were certainly the world wars, especially the second one, when the National Library of Serbia in Belgrade was completely destroyed in the air raid on the 6th of April, 1941, when its entire holdings were irrecoverably lost, which included 500,000 library items, all documents and manuscripts, all printed books, correspondence of prominent historical figures, journals and newspapers, old maps, together with the inventory books and catalogs. After the war, the library's main activities were directed at finding new, adequate premises and at renewing its holdings. This period culminated in 1973, when the first purpose-built National Library of Serbia, the one in which we are today, opened its gates and started to work. Its main task, defined by the relevant laws and legal regulations, has been to collect through legal deposit, purchasing, exchange, gifts, donations, etc., and to store the publications from the territory of the whole country, as well as those from abroad that deal with our literature and our culture in general. The National Library of Serbia has been the country's national, central, parent, and Research Library, Reference Center for Scholarly Information, Center of the Library Information System, Center for Preservation and Conservation of Books and Library Materials, and so on. Having stepped into the 21st century, the National Library of Serbia has broadened the range of its activities. For instance, it has played the role of the country's central electronic catalog that connects a great number of libraries, providing mutual information for end users. This has also been the time of the digitization of library items, aimed at preserving and presenting the most valuable manuscripts, books, maps, and other library material from our national heritage. With the new millennium, certain projects came to the National Library. One of the first was the international project Serbia and Montenegro Book Market Upgrade, also known as Bibliodyssey, which lasted for several years and was coordinated and implemented by the National Library of Serbia. It was mainly financed through the MATRA program of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as by other partners, the Serbian and the Montenegrin Ministries of Culture being among them. The project was aimed at establishing a comprehensive and reliable book information system and a professional and independent book distribution system all over the country, which would serve all publishers, booksellers, and libraries on fair and equal terms, and which would cooperate with book market factors in the whole region. The project was also aimed at developing bookshop and printing house networks through opening a number of them in the whole country. It also tried to raise the educational level in the field of publishing, bookselling, distribution, marketing, book promotion, which was about training and transfer of knowledge through a series of seminars and workshops for publishers, booksellers, and distributors. And all that took place at the National Library of Serbia, which is even more important if we take into account the fact that there has been no formal education in this field in our country. Finally, there was a part of the project aimed at cross-border cooperation in the region, which included the enhancing of contacts and cooperation between the actors in the book market in the region, the improving of the cross-border circulation of books in the region by providing libraries with books from the neighboring countries and stimulating cross-border distribution networks. And finally, assisting in re-establishing cultural ties between the countries in the region by providing funds for cross-border co-productions of quality books. One can see from the mentioned aims of the project that the library's previous primary activities were somewhat balanced with those that, let us say so, had a wider approach to books. It became obvious that as much as it was important that the National Library of Serbia should responsibly and successfully perform its original tasks, it was also important that this institution of culture should carry out activities that could not be called library activities in the strict sense. Soon after that, the National Library of Serbia started to organize and implement the presentations of the entire Republic of Serbia at international book fairs, for instance, in Leipzig and in Frankfurt, or in the capitals of the regional countries like Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, Greece, where it gathered a great number of our publishers and authors presenting their work to the foreign public. It must be said that this required special capabilities and knowledge in the field of international cooperation and cultural diplomacy, translation, publishing, book presentation, and other cultural programs, PR and marketing, etc. So one realized that there was a need for forming another sector within the National Library of Serbia apart from the three already existing ones, which are, by the way, the book information activities sector, the Virtual Library of Serbia sector, and the general sector that deals with financial, legal, and technical matter. So we practically gave a formal frame to the aforementioned activities within the structure of the National Library of Serbia. And the result was the forming of its fourth sector, cultural sector. It consists of 4 sections or departments: the publishing department, the book selling and marketing department, the culture programs and PR department, and the international relations department. The publishing department publishes monograph and periodical publications from the library information field, of course, capital publications like, for instance, national bibliographies, dictionaries, unique works from its special collections, such as, for instance, old maps, works from the field of social sciences and humanities, belletristic literature, for example, translations into English of prose and poetic works of our eminent authors, as well as specific publications like exhibition and other catalogs, souvenirs, calendars, promotion materials, and so on. The book selling and marketing department deals with the popularization and the sale of the mentioned publications and products, which can be found in bookstores and other related places all over the country, as well as in libraries and similar institutions abroad, by means of the National Library of Serbia's international exchange. One should mention here the National Library of Serbia's souvenir program, which includes specific products that promote the special collections of the National Library of Serbia, hold geographic maps, prints, posters, memo pads, bookmarkers, bags, T-shirts. This department also regularly presents all activities and cultural contents of the National Library of Serbia on its website and on social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. The Cultural Programs Department organizes literary and other cultural events, presents the collections of the National Library of Serbia through exhibitions, also organizes exhibitions in cooperation with other cultural institutions, both domestic and foreign, organizes music events and concerts, etc. There are usually 4 major exhibitions at the National Library of Serbia every year, together with a larger number of smaller ones. The National Library of Serbia's literary programs, which are also sometimes organized in cooperation with other domestic and foreign institutions, are above all aimed at promoting the culture of reading, then at stimulating public dialogue, and at raising awareness concerning the importance of cultural heritage and of contemporary literary creative work. One of such programs is a series of summer literary evenings that take place in another part of Belgrade, there where the old library, the destroyed one, once stood, which also has its symbolical meaning of merging the everlasting cultural heritage with contemporary creation. The guests or the participants are most distinguished writers, cultural and creative workers. The International Relations Department takes care of all the international aspects of the National Library of Serbia's activities. It works closely with cultural centers and embassies of other countries in Serbia, as well as with the Serbian diplomatic missions abroad, of course. It organizes the stays of our experts in other countries and vice versa. It proposes and prepares cooperation agreements between the National Library of Serbia and other related institutions in the world, and covers the bilateral and multilateral cooperation with such institutions. It takes care of the continuity of the National Library of Serbia's membership regarding international organizations and associations, as well as of the National Library of Serbia's participation in international projects and programs. In relation to the mentioned departments whose consolidation was supposed to bring greater efficiency and better results, the idea was also to bring together a number of young people, capable young people who would practically be willing to do different jobs at the same time, who would be prepared to face tight deadlines and fight against time react quickly, make right decisions, and find the best solutions, and of course be able to function as a team too. Finally, who would be aware of the fact that their work would differ from the work of most of their colleagues in the other sectors of the National Library of Serbia. Last year was certainly a considerable challenge for all, especially for the cultural sector. We had to find alternative ways of carrying out our mission. For instance, international cooperation was removed to the virtual sphere completely. We practically had to switch to recording all of our cultural activities online, live, in real time. We started to use exclusively our social media sites in order to reach our public. We had to give our exhibitions their virtual garment too, so that they could be visited online. On the other hand, the public soon got used to those changes and even increased thanks to them. Hopefully, by the end of the year, the National Library of Serbia will have a new, practical and interactive website. It will include both the old and the new contents, so we will have another good way of reaching our users. We could conclude that all those necessary changes and transformations will remain useful even after the pandemic is over. So I would like to thank you for your patience and time.
So, Dragan, thank you very much for this overview on your various activities. I especially like the souvenirs program. I was not aware of that. I will inform my colleagues to do something similar. Also, in the insight of the changes of last year. Personally, I vividly remember your proactive engagement in international collaborations and projects. And I can see Tamara Putigan here. We've been working very close together of creating a virtual exhibition on the Danube collections in European National Libraries. So thank you very much for this. And especially thanks to Tamara again for her effort. And I hope we will continue to collaborate in the future.
We're looking forward to it.
So thank you. And our next speaker is Dragana Koljenik. She's a librarian at the National and University Library in Zagreb. And she has a professional and, as you will see, personal interest in the field of new technologies and positive organizational disruptions through digitization in library operations. She will give us an insight into some of the outputs from the digital laboratory of the National Library of Zagreb, where is she the head of, and she will talk about culture and education and science podcasts, a project on culture, education and science podcasts. So please, Dragana.
Thank you for this introduction, and also thank you for all the other colleagues that have invited me to speak on behalf of the National and University Library in Zagreb. Today, I will be talking to you about our new project, which are podcasts in the culture, education and science sector. So the National and University Library of Croatia has a long and rich history that goes back to 1607. Its primary mission is the development and preservation of Croatian cultural heritage, and it holds around 3 million items. So we have this culture and tradition down pat, but we are also very proud of our leadership role in the innovation on the national scale in Croatian library system. Great steps towards this innovation were made by the Croatian Digital Library, which was established in 2015, but its efforts go way back. But although we are very proud of our innovative projects, we felt like there was a part missing, a part where we missed a place where we could gather all the people that are doing these innovative projects, but that come from different backgrounds. So we established the Digital Laboratory NSK, which is a new program of the National Library. We opened up the space in late March of 2020 because why not? it was not a great timing. It was, I think, 3 weeks before the first lockdown hit. And when I look at this picture, I just hope that there will soon be a time where we will all gather like this again, without masks, without fear, and freely. So we had a lot of things planned. A lot of things were revolving around this physical space. We had some projects that were already ongoing, some projects that we wanted to develop. But when everything changed with the pandemic, not for us, but for the whole world, we knew that it was time to think outside of the box, and to think outside of the box very, very clearly. One of the consequences of this pandemic for many institutions, organizations, associations, and individuals that were operating within the culture and creative industries, as well as the science and education sectors, meant the necessity of a complete or a partial transition of their activities to the digital environment. And we started to look at this digital landscape in creative, cultural, science, and educational sectors, and we asked ourselves, are we happy with it? And well, the long story short is that we weren't happy with it. In the cultural and creative sectors, there was just not enough content and not enough good quality content. And in the science and educational sectors, as you can remember and imagine, it was a mess and it was a lot of misinformation. So to combat that, we kind of went with the zeitgeist of the time, and this is one of the most positive aspects of this whole situation, because the zeitgeist was, what can we do to help? We wanted to do something that would have a large-scale impact, but that we could do with a small-scale project. When I say small-scale project, I mean primarily budget and a team of people that were working on it. What I mean by a large-scale impact is that we wanted to impact as many sectors possible, as many people possible, and we wanted to distribute on as many platforms as possible. So the main aim of this project was really to mitigate the negative effects caused by the pandemic by providing technical infrastructure and know-how for creating, producing, and distributing high-quality digital content in podcast format. So why podcasts? I'm sure you know, I'm sure a lot of you know that podcasts as a format have just exploded in the last decade. Here are some statistics. I will not read everything, but it is estimated that there are now over 2 million podcasts and more than 48 million podcast episodes. And this is an interesting statistic that in 2021, 78% of Americans are aware of podcasting, and in 2000 it was just 22%. Of course, podcasting will increase. The demand for podcasts will definitely increase. All the estimates show that, and these are statistics for US, but I think the world is following along nicely. Just to mention that behind the US, the country where podcasts are most being listened to is Sweden, then Ireland, Brazil, and then UK. There is research that shows that in the UK, about a third of respondents are podcast listeners. And here is a graph by Statista from 2021 that shows most listened to genres. As you can see, there is no culture or education or science in this first, I think, 15 or something. So we knew that there was a gap on the market. For Croatian podcast market, we don't have exact statistics, but in the last 5 years or so, it has becoming more and more popular. So we conceived this project on 4 principles that are availability, decentralization, accessibility, and cost effectiveness. Namely, the podcasts remain permanently available on the streaming services they are on, so the audience can access it regardless of time and place, which also affects the decentralization of cultural and educational activities. And also, to consume this content, the audience doesn't need special equipment or knowledge, which greatly facilitates access to and consumption of this type of content. And the principle of a central location for filming with all of the technical and software infrastructure enables high-tech standards, but with low, almost none cost to the content creators. So we started to connect with our potential podcasters sometime in July of this year. We made a public call for all of the organization, institutions, and individuals who operate in this cultural and scientific and educational sectors to send us their ideas and their early concepts for their podcasts. We received around 20 of very, very good quality ideas, and we chose 6 to begin their podcasting journey with us. So I will just briefly mention which of the 6 we chose. So this is the Beli Zagreb Grad podcast. Some of the names are untranslatable, so I hope you can excuse that. It is a podcast by the young editor of the eponymous portal Barbara Grgic, in which he hosts artists whose work enriches Zagreb's cultural scene. The next podcast is called Where Do Ideas Go? By the Zadar Association Petit Philosophy, in which the host of the podcast talks to his guests about philosophy and various ideas, as well as creators of these ideas. The next is the Speech Hunt podcast, in which Mr. Davor Stankovic, who is a teacher of speech and public speaking, talks with his guests about the importance of communication, speech, and rhetorical education. In the Power of the Book podcast, the host Dobrela Zvonarek talks to her guests about books, their role in society, and the future of books and reading in Croatia. Then we have the podcast by the University of Zagreb, in which they introduced their audience to young Croatian scientists and their innovative projects. And lastly, we have a librarianship podcast by the Zagreb Library Association, in which the host, Mihail Bili, talks to his guests about projects, current topics, and the life and work of librarians in Croatia. So after we chose the 6 finalists, we started learning. And when I say we, I mean we as the team in NSK and our participants in the project. We had a few online educations, but I think that the most important thing was giving our participants the support. We had the Facebook group, we had mentoring, and we were there all the time. Whenever they needed something, were unsure of something, we made sure that we had answers and that we supported them. Sometime in late September, we started recording. Even though podcast as a format is primarily audio, but in this Balkan market, if I can say so, video just goes well, and people like to listen to podcasts on video as well. So we decided to do both, which was which complicated things a little bit, but we are now glad that we did it. This is a little sneak peek of our studio that we made. And we started, soon after that, we started to distribute. We have a YouTube channel, which you can check out, and we are, the podcasts in audio format are available on all the applications for listening, like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Podbean, etc. This is our Spotify account. Unfortunately, the podcasts are only in the Croatian language, but you never know. Maybe we will start doing them in English as well. So when we talk about the results, it's maybe a bit early to say because we are still in this recording phase and distribution phase, but I can definitely say that we met some really, really great people. We, not only that the library made different connections to different organizations, but also they connected amongst themselves and started collaborating on some other projects, which is really surprising and very nice. For now, we have 13 episodes of the podcast, and I think it's better if the people that were involved in the project say something. So we have here a quote by Mr. Davor Stankovic from the Speech Hunt podcast, that in which he says that he hopes that this podcast will fulfill his long-time desire to spread noble rhetorical values and make rhetoric accessible to all. And finally, I would like to conclude with the words from another one of the participants in the project, Barbara Grgic, when she said that culture is not on the wane, culture is breathing forward. Thank you for your attention.
So Dragana, thank you very much for this very, very inspiring and innovative project you have been starting. I mean, we are at the Austrian National Library. We also try to engage ourselves in social media and Facebook and so forth, but we did not think about having a podcast. But this is an excellent idea, and also I think very, very exciting one for reaching out to new audiences. Personally, I'm from a very much elder generation. I didn't use this format very often, but when Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama had their podcast, then I registered for Spotify to hear them. I think, first of all, thank you to all three participants for this interesting insights. I think we don't have any questions so far from the audience, and I would like to invite you to pose some questions or to give a comment if you wish. I would have a question to all three participants. Anybody who would like to answer could do it. My question would be, now, most of us, or basically all of us, we had to transform our services to online formats. At the National Library, we have created a new digital reading room with more than 1 million items. We have created virtual exhibitions. We have created formats for our teaching library in online seminars and webinars and so forth. So my question would be, I think most of you have done similar things and very successfully done so, but are people coming back physically to your libraries? And did you get new audiences with new formats and new services? And how about the elder generation? How do they deal with this digital change in these times of pandemic? So this would be my questions to anybody who feels like to answer. But Dragana, maybe you're still there, so maybe you could answer first.
I think we were very lucky with the situation because we have of course epidemiologic measurements in our library, but a lot of people have returned, and we have been luckily been able to hold our events physically, but we started to do hybrids. So we have a physical event with a lower number of attendees because of the whole situation, but we also stream online. So that is the model we have started to adopt, and I think that people are responding well to it. And maybe someone who didn't have experience in consuming this online digital content has really in these past 2 years gotten used to it. So we haven't had a lot of problems once we started to doing it regularly.
Dragan, how is the situation in your library in Serbia?
Well, it's practically the same as Dragana said. Last year it was, let's say, more difficult, and we just tried to accommodate and to simply use the online format. Now we mixed those two things, and we can see that the number of users even increased during that period of using the online format, the live streaming and things like that. So we certainly had some opportunity to learn something from this pandemic for the future. So we will certainly use both ways to reach our public.
And if I may add a question, how about your staff? How do you are dealing with this situation? I mean, psychologically, then with working from home, and also I think in especially in the culture.
Those bells have started to ring now, and I really cannot hear you now because we are near the temple of Saint Sava,
Okay.
and it's really loud. You will probably hear them. Yes. So.
Okay, maybe later then. So maybe then I could ask Adiba about Azerbaijan. How is the situation there? I could see from your presentations people with masks, people without masks, many crowds in the library. So how is it? How is the situation in your library in regarding the pandemic and physical and virtual presence? Not sure. Then my question to the audience, do you have any questions or wishes to comment? No, I can't see. Eleanor?
I was just thinking, Dragan, you said that during the pandemic, obviously a lot of your international engagement had to tail off, but I was just wondering whether when you did put your material online, did you find that you also had much bigger audiences, not only from your own country, but internationally? Were people sort of visiting? And I don't know, I suppose it depends if you keep records of who is attending an online event and where they're coming from, but I know that at the British Library we definitely expanded our audiences in that way. People who would physically not have been in London on a particular evening could suddenly attend a series of talks. So I just wondered if that also happened for everyone else.
Well, I could answer this for our library. I think when we did this very successful project with support of CNL on the Danube collections in European national libraries, here really we had a very good international response. And also we created virtual tours through our state hall, because before the pandemic we had 80% of our visitors were tourists and coming abroad. And well, first of all, this was not very good for our finances, to put it mildly. But secondly, we thought we had to do something, so we created online tours through the State Hall, and this was very successfully also internationally. Yeah, but I'm not sure. I think still for our activities, most of our users are from Austria, I guess, for other services. Well, if we don't have any further questions, then I would like to thank everybody for participating at this event, and especially to our speakers, and above all, of course, as always, to the excellent team of the British Library and the CNL Secretariat. This was always a pleasure for me working together with you. This period will come to an end in Brussels in a very short time, and I desperately hope that we will meet physically again someday. So thank you very much, everybody, for being with us, and have a nice weekend.